There you go, sir.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to our special meeting, I guess, of a Wednesday night instead of our regular Tuesday of June 28th, 2023. We're going to be calling this meeting to order by resolution. Motion, please, Madam Clerk.
Be it resolved that this regular meeting now open at 6:28 p.m. Moved by Councillor Shane, seconded by Deputy Mayor Densham.
Any or all in the favor? Motion's carried.
Oh, you want to do that again? I'll just mark carried.
Going to the adoption of agenda.
Be it resolved that the agenda be approved as presented. Moved by Councillor Shane, seconded by Councillor McDonald.
Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or nature thereof? Seeing none, moving on. So we do have a delegation this evening. We're going to be receiving from EVB Engineering in regards to the Chrysler subdivision in regards to road infrastructure. We'd like to welcome Monsieur Lafleur to come and present.
All right. Well, thanks again for inviting me or for having me. My name is Francois Lafleur from EVB Engineering. I'm a civil engineer there. I've been working in the industry for about 15 years now. And we have a little presentation for tonight.
You have it.
Oh, I have the clicker. All right. I would have waited a long time. Thanks. So yeah, just personally, I have a lot of experience working on. We've done a few design guidelines for neighboring townships. The first ones were South Stormont and Champlain Township in 2015. Then we worked on Clarence Rothland's design guidelines. We're currently updating it too, as you know, things have changed and some things have worked well, other things have not worked well. So we're making a few tweaks to it. And South Dundas was in 2019. And this is the, so the purpose of tonight's meeting or delegation is we want to talk about the cross section for the subdivision that we're proposing to build in Chrysler. And the current roadway cross section standard for North Stormont is currently, it's a road with no curbs, just granular shoulders, and there's storm sewers on both sides of the road. I think I have, yeah. So we have like catch basins in the grass here in between the driveways. And just driveways, no curbs. And this is Creekside Estates Phase 1.
Yes. Can you maybe, the clicker's not working.
You're not.
Okay, thanks. So this is the cross section that we are looking to do on our new subdivision. It's different in the sense that it's considered like an urban section. So we have curbs on both sides of the road. We have an 8-meter wide asphalt surface, and we have storms. So with the addition of curbs, we also have to do a storm sewer. It's over here. Then we would do catch basins in the road. And everything else is quite standard, like water main, as we had in Creekside Estates, sanitary sewer. There are different locations in the right of way that could be adjusted as need be. And we have like obviously hydrants and light standards, and that's quite typical. And the curb could be either like a barrier curb, or sometimes we've seen like mountable curbs being done, or semi-mountable curb. That's really, there's different pros and cons to each. Could be either, doesn't matter. And in terms of what other townships are doing, so there's a lot of townships, or most townships around the area, even Prescott Russell, do either allow curb or require curbs. And I want to take like South Stormont, for example. What their approach is, if you have lots bigger than 20 meters in frontage, then you can either do open ditches or curbs. It's up to you to decide. But as soon as you get under that 20-meter frontage, so which we are for Chrysler for the subdivision, then you have to do curbs. It's not even an option. It's you have to do it. Same thing for Cornwall. Well, not exactly the same thing because there is no other option. You have to do curb regardless. And why we want to do curbs, the first reason is just aesthetics, and it helps for delineation for parking. This is in Castleman. I think of the construction was around 2008, 2009. So, there's a few years there, and they're holding up okay. Like they're not all broken up, and the asphalt's cracked a bit. Maybe in a few years they could do like a mill and pave type thing, but it's up to them. This is another project in Castleman, more recent one. Obviously, the asphalt is all nice and new, all nice and black. And so again, just for aesthetics, with the higher densities that we'll be seeing for our project, this is pretty much comparable to what Chrysler would look like. And another reason for wanting to do curbs is, like, we have to do hydro transformers, we have to do hydrants, so that there doesn't leave much room for catch basins in the grass. So like you'd have a catch basin here, you're potentially conflicting with that box, and you have another one there, you're behind the hydrant. And like this is a big driveway, obviously, which kind of goes to help with parking issues that have been, I'm sure, on township's staff's mind and on council's mind, that when you do higher densities, you have less parking, it becomes a bit of a mess, which the bigger driveways help for that, but then that doesn't leave much room for catch basins, obviously. This is another example. So this is townhomes this time. The previous image was semis. Again, like it's only a small amount of grass remains for the catch basins. Same thing here, just a tiny amount of grass. So it becomes like physically hard to fit those catch basins in the right of way. And in terms of maintenance, there's fewer structures or fewer catch basins to maintain. So for G&E's draft plan, currently we have 222 lots. And usually we would do like one catch basin per lot. So that's 222 catch basins. Whereas if we do roadway catch basins, it's about like 2 catch basins, like one on each side of the road, or like 80 meters of road. So with the total length of road that we have, it gives us about 50 catch basins. So it's less maintenance for that, for sump cleaning. They're easier to access because they're in the road, so you'll be plowing them. So it's quite easy to find them. You can open them in the winter. You can, if they're frozen. They shouldn't freeze because they're with the road salt. Their salt's going right there, so it should not freeze. It defines the road, so we're thinking the snow plow guys are going to like that, just because they know where to stop. And it reduces likelihood of damage to the laneways and the lawns as well. Especially with a barrier curb, so you have that vertical face that, if they're plowing on the backside of the barrier, it's they've gone too far, obviously. It facilitates street sweeping because there's no loose gravel shoulders to be kind of vacuumed up or swept up by the truck. And in terms of like one consideration that like us as engineers think about, but maybe not on staff mind, or like when we're designing the project. So we're going to have a very large area going to, like, we have a pond over here somewhere. So we have about like 100 acres of development going into that pond, and that generates a lot of stormwater runoff. And the best way to get that runoff to the pond is with like conventional storm sewers. So we can put those in the road. We can go with a larger pipe. We're probably going to be around a 4-foot diameter pipe at the downstream end here, based on our preliminary calculations anyways, which is hard to do. Like if you're doing the 2-pipe system, like 1 4-foot diameter pipe and capacity is about equal to 2 3 diameter pipes, like based just on the area. So it gets very expensive very quick when you're doing the 2-3 foot diameter pipes versus the 1-4 foot. And it just becomes like hard to fit everything in the road section. Like it just gets super congested and it's not ideal. And the other approach, like for the twin storm sewer system, like those are like infiltration systems, so they recharge the groundwater. But one important consideration is the soils have to be like, they have to be able to allow the water to get into the soil, which based on our geotechnical reports for the site, like it's a lot of clay for the soil, which does not allow the water to really get back in the aquifer. And the other consideration is, so like infiltration basin or infiltration trench, like they're recommending under 5 hectares and 2 hectares, and we are well above that. So it becomes really hard to infiltrate that water back into it's a lot of runoff to be infiltrated into like a small footprint. So it becomes hard to like technically to do it that way. And we did a little case study. So we did a project a couple of years ago. It was a project in Champlain Township, so Van Cleek Hill, even in Saint Denis Street. It was originally built in 75, and we rebuilt it in 21. It was 46 years old. Everything was original on the project. Like the asphalt was original, the curbs were, the storm sewers were, everything. So we did a CCTV investigation of all the storm sewers. And for the most part, the pipes are in good shape. We had to do some repairs, which I have here. The bigger repair was there was a metal pipe here, which we would not use today, but that was all rusted up. So we cut that. We tore up the road and we rebuilt that. There were some spot repairs as well. So over here, there's a pipe that was partially collapsed. That was a concrete pipe, I believe. Similar idea here. And then we had a sump there. So for this entire stretch of road, we only had those repairs to do. We had some other repairs too that were done that we did with pipelining, so that did not require us to put up the road. Just had a contractor come in, put the liner through, and that's it. And in terms of cost, so it's just under $5,000 for the spot repairs, and the open cut repair for the outlet pipe was under $10,000, not including the road reinstatement costs that we were doing anyways. So for 46 years of lifespan for the road, it's not bad. Like it's pretty good in terms of maintenance. And then we just wanted to talk to you briefly about the light standards. So this is the current lighting standard for North Stormont, and it's just a bare metal post with just a cobra head. And we're wanting to do something a bit fancier for our subdivision. So it's a painted concrete pole with like a fancier luminaire, still cobra style, but anyway, so we just wanted to put that out there for council to review. And the other thing I wanted, like we received, thanks Greg for providing this earlier. So we received the memo from SEMA Plus with concerns as to, I don't know if that's been circulated to council or not. Okay. Just like some concerns that were noted with the proposed cross section. And we think there's a lot of those concerns that we can address by simply revising, go back, where the pipes are in the road. Okay, so like one concern was there is like the hydrant valve will be in the grass. One solution there is we could move the water main inside the asphalt if that's the direction we want to go. So that's an easy change to do. There was another comment about traffic loads on catch basins. I don't think personally it's going to be an issue because our roads are, well, first of all, like we've installed catch basins on Highway 34 in Van Cleek Hill, which sees like, over 10,000 cars a day. And they're holding up quite well. But then even so, like the lanes are wide enough that people are not going to be driving over the top of the catch basin constantly. Like they're far off to the side that if you're driving normally, like you'll be missing the catch basins. Yeah, those. Obviously, there is some extra costs to the township. If ever there was a repair to be done on the water main, let's say that you have to cut open the curb and rebuild that, but that's just like part of wanting to do like part of that design is do curbs. So yeah, they'll need to be redone. Yeah, for the same reason, like we're paving the roads, but if you do have repair, you have to redo the asphalt, but it's just a normal consequence of having paved roads or concrete curbs, I believe. And in terms of the width, so we have 8 meters, but we also have a portion of the curbs that are meant to be like driven on. They're not like, you're not supposed to be driving on them, but we do have about a 0.3, about a foot of each curb is the gutter. So that could be driven on. So it widens the actual road platform to about 8.5, 8.6 meters, which is in line with now the Northern Storm's current guidelines. I believe you're 8.5 currently meter. So it's very comparable in terms of like usable width. So yeah, anyways, I guess the point is, if we were able to get like some kind of recommendation or approval to proceed with curbs, and then we can tweak the cross section to whatever is acceptable to staff. We can circle back at the next meeting or before that, because I do believe there is no vote tonight on this. So because yeah, and the other comment was the proximity to the joint utilities trench. Obviously this is not drawn to scale, so the trench is going to be deeper here, and it should be far enough away that it's not impacting the sewer or the water main, whichever, if there is open cut repair needed on those. But what we can do is you can come back with a cross section that's drawn to scale, see how everything fits in there, and yeah, but as long as like be looking for some comments or some reassurance that we will be able to proceed with curbs anyways. That's pretty much all I had. Then I'll open it up to questions next.
Thank you very much, Francois. So I'll take any questions come from council. Go start, Mr. Deputy Mayor Denstrom.
My light was flashing here, so hopefully it's gonna stay on, but I think we're okay. Okay. Thank you for the presentation. And again, it looks clean. Like I gotta say, aesthetically, it looks very clean. It looks modern and that's great. One of the questions I had though is, let's say over time, we have to put different surface treatments on the road. As the road wears and starts to crack, et cetera, et cetera. Can you comment on how curbs affect what else we have to do to compensate for the fact that we have curbs? Like I'm assuming right now, because my road was actually done not too long ago, and it just felt like put another layer on and then you can build up a little bit of gravel. But is it different if you have curbs? Curbs? Yeah,
through the chair, like the main approach that it's different for when you're wanting to do repairs. So what you would do is mill down the existing asphalt, which you could do about 1.5 inches, 2 inches or so. And just pretty much like it becomes all grinded up. And then there's still like a lift of asphalt underneath. They would put like a tack coat, which is like a sticky, gooey membrane or liquid. And then you would just pave over top of that. And that's best done when the roads is still in like decent shape. Like maybe at 20 some years of lifespan or so.
And am I right to assume that's a more expensive process than kind of how my road probably was done?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's like the milling cost it's not much in the grand scheme of things, but it is an added cost versus just doing another layer on top. And the main reason we can't just do another layer on top is you'd be like above the curbs now, and it wouldn't really work so well. It would become an issue. So you're still adding like about 2 inches or so of asphalt, so doesn't look like much, but you'd be feeling it every time you.
No, I feel it every time I drive in the driveway right now,
Yeah.
waiting for Blake. The pavement to cure, and then he can take the bump out on my driveway. Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Discussion, Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, I think like I like the way it looks of when you see it, yards, streets and. Prevents the issues with like the gravel kind of bleeding off into the yards and. I wouldn't want it to be more difficult for the snow operators in the winter. And you're saying like it may be easier, but we'll want to probably, I assume we're getting staff report at a future meeting. But. Not allowed to talk. I'll turn my-
It'll pick up on here, so through the chair. The 2 items for this subdivision are coming back on July 18th, that's. I have scheduled. And certainly we weren't intending to bring, well, we are. Public Works Superintendent. Yeah, we did get a preliminary review from CMA, our engineer, and we can certainly put forward more in-depth response, but I believe in order to do a full review of the rounds report and numbers and regarding not just the red, but also the water main.
Or forest main.
We're trying to put together as much information as we can to allow council to make an educated decision. I understand that this will probably be a tactical decision if they decide to move forward on the 18th. Because in the best case scenario, we have the service master plan, which won't be available to us. So again, we're trying to provide all of the ingredients for this council to make the best decision. The best interest of the township. And the great folks.
And I think it's interesting, just, that most of the other municipalities have, obviously, as people have had to transition to this urban cross section, like I'm assuming. So Stormont went through a transition, they did their road standards in 2015, I think you said. So before that, they were maybe not as formal in their process. I mean, like everyone goes through this where you kind of move towards a different look and feel in the villages. What's I gonna say? There's something else. I can't.
If you can, I
Yeah.
can go and you can come back, you bet.
Yeah, of course. Was there going sidewalks in the subdivision?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure what I don't know if maybe somebody else could answer that.
Because I'm seeing a sidewalk. With them having.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Mhm.
All that is different.
Yeah, and just I wanted to add one thing, if I may. For the snow clearing, there's different types of curbs, as I mentioned earlier. This is the mountable type, so I could see where the grass would be more easily damaged with this type of curb. Like it looks fine here, but yeah, it could happen where the plow blade goes a bit beyond there and scrapes off the grass. Whereas like if you went with a more barrier type of curb, then you have a 6-inch high vertical face. Except that the driveways, of course, which like if it would help guide the plow to some extent. So I guess we're flexible on which type of curb the township wants to use. And there's like a semi-mountable too. It's like I think 3 inches or so high. So it's like a happy medium maybe. So we're quite open to which type of curb we're going with. And yeah, you're correct in that like as time goes on, like it seems to be like the way back when South Stormont did not have standards. And they did one subdivision like Chase Meadows, which was it was a lot of driveways and they went open ditch and it didn't really work so well. So then at that time they said, okay, we need to do something more. And as densities increase, which I guess for North Starmont, it hasn't been really like a thing until like phase 1 of Creekside Estates, the lots are quite big. So I think there, the current standard, the current cross section works quite well. Like it's more like a rural feel. You have bigger lots, but as like costs increase to develop and lots shrink, then it becomes to start to clash with like the urban aspect and the rural aspect start to clash. And that's where it doesn't work so well for us as when we're designing this thing as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so,
Shane?
so you actually touched on one of the things here was snow plowing. I'm thinking with curbs, we're gonna get away from a lot more complaints about grass ripped up by the snow plows so much. It has a far cleaner look, controls your park if people are parking on your lawns. But with your 20-meter lots, and if your storm sewers are off the road in between it, I know one of the issues is the cost of maintaining the sewers if they're on the road. Well, I'm just thinking here, your spaces between the driveways is very small. If you gotta start pulling up those storm sewers there, you're now going to be repairing driveways anyways, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you. My turn. So if I can add, so the 20-meter, so pretty much every subdivision has a 20-meter road allowance.
Right.
And we have so the concern from SEMA, from what you said, so when they're talking about where the pipe is, would there not be a standard allowance of where each pipe, I mean, every municipality has a water main, has a sanitary, has a storm. So what, like, as far as concern, you mentioned we can kind of play where they go, but is there not kind of a standard? I'm just wondering, because every road's the same.
Right, yeah. And that's where like different townships, like they all allow curbs, but what happens under the curbs is different. So like Champlain, for example, has their sanitary right down the middle of the road because they don't want to have like infiltration into their maintenance holes. Whereas Cornwall has theirs, like they'll do their sanitary sewers on the grass here for kind of the same idea. And it helps to like remove congestion of infrastructure from within your right of way. So that part's flexible. And I guess as long as, I guess the thing we're here for today is like, it'd be great if we could agree on curbs or no curbs, and then we can kind of hash out the details as to where the pipes go. And there is some flexibility there for sure. In different townships, there's not a set clear guidelines for where the pipes go. That's really, I think each of those townships that I mentioned earlier, I think each of those has a different location for their pipes. And
I would suggest the one that's more prone to go would be the one that you want off the roadway into the grass and maybe not that. But so secondly, we do have, especially in this phase, there's R3, so you do have townhouses, which again, we've got the ones in Kreisberg that were, and it's a bit of a mess there with those catch basins that are, so with that higher density with regards to townhouses, it changes the dynamic, which would be, and I've driven through many subdivisions in the last week and the aesthetics is, my view is no different that we pave our streets in our towns. And I understand it's asset management, it's putting money in the bank, but it's our infrastructure. And we could turn around and say, well, we're going to gravel our roads in town, because it would be, but that's this kind of service. And I think we're moving into a bigger development that I think the aesthetics has to be there. And I think we have to move into similar to the adjoining municipalities that have done the same. One thing with sidewalks, if you do put now, all of a sudden, we do have minimum standards to deal with as far as cleaning our sidewalk. Now you're putting more work into our roads department. And so that's something that could be discussed, but as far as curbs, it's one side. Last is as far as lights, one thing, and again, speaking with Mr. Young, with Peter, we're working at the counties as far as overall doing a subdivision with lights. I've spoke to two other municipalities. What they do is they set up two models. And basically that's what you go with. So we can attain parts. The only, like, you're changing light bulbs unless there's a motor vehicle accident that smashes one. Hopefully you're not changing them all the time. And if you have two of them, it gives the opportunity to go to one or the other and not go to any one where you've got 10 different models. But that's something that we, again, we could talk with and work with the plan and build what I think will work for everyone. So this was just basically accepting the report. We're not voting on anything, but I think it was good information. As far as I think you've answered, I'll have it better. I didn't get a chance to read. I had commitments this afternoon. So in regards to SEMAs, just to go through, we'll be talking with our public works. But overall, I think it was a productive meeting, and we'll stay in touch and keep you keep you posted.
Okay, and like I said, we'll take a better look at the current cross section, what we're proposing, just to like address as many of SEMA Plus's concerns as we can. Because we think there are some valid concerns in there, but there are some that we can easily address. So just to just in the sake of keeping everybody happy and working together and all that.
Thank you very much, François,
Right,
and
thank you.
you're welcome to stay, or if you want to. So I'm gonna move on to the adoption of our minutes for the previous meeting of June 13, 2023 and 14, 2023. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Be it resolved that the following minutes be approved as presented. Regular meeting, the 13th of June, 2023, special meeting, 14th of June, 2023. Moved by Deputy Mayor Densham, seconded by Councillor Shane.
Any questions or comments on the last two meetings? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. The adoption of minutes of committee, no, that's, so the receiving of the monthly staff reports and recommendation.
That council directs the mayor and clerk of the municipality to authorize and execute the release and deletion of the current subdivision development agreement attached hereto as Schedule A and forming part of this bylaw. Moved by Councillor Shane, seconded by Deputy Mayor Densham.
So we will get Peter to brief us on this, and then we can get the questions.
Thank you. This is a subdivision on the old subdivision located at 138. Part of expansion. Council's already passed the bylaw to deem it off-base subdivision, so all lots were merged. There's still an old agreement with the original owners on this lot. If no passes this bylaw, I will authorize the agreement so they can proceed with. This is just one of the legal tools that we need to address before they.
Okay. Any questions in regards to? Go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
So it was just sort of like an error, like a legal error kind of thing that agreement got left.
No, it was just they never actually registered the DB bylaws, so they never.
Yeah.
So the subdivision still exists, they can still build it if they wanted to based on the agreement, but.
Okay, so council deemed it not a subdivision, but that never got actually filed with the land registry.
They access to give authorization.
Okay, thanks.
So has that been dealt with, like at the, so I know the roads were ours, but the land, the lots weren't. So is it the land registry office that would be looking at decommissioning or deregistering a subdivision? Or do we have the power just to, because I mean, the lots aren't ours outside of only the roads that are in our name, correct?
Yeah, so typically council would pass the bylaw or to come into effect to be registered. But they never went ahead with actually registering the bylaw. And then now that they're, large company and lots of projects now, this project is coming to the forefront, the expansion to it's right towards 8 months. Now they're going back to the state. But typically, yeah, you would deem it, all the lots would merge together, and the municipality would transfer the road back. definitely necessary for the plans. We'll just register all this and then there may be one or two more bylaws or agreements, but this is just one of the old subdivision.
And as you mentioned, there is one lot that do we not have to deem them frontage on a public road, or is that also being dealt with this motion?
That would be separate.
That will be
This is
separate.
just For the subdivision.
For the sub-
But they
yeah.
have to actually meet the subdivision first to merge all the lots together.
Yeah. No, that's good. So any further questions? The motion's read, all in, or, yes, we do. So all in favor, sorry. I wasn't sure if we were just listening to the report. So all in favor? Motion's carried. Going to 7.2 in regards to an unopened road allowance. Craig will speak, but I'll let you read the motion and we'll go.
That the council of the corporation of the township of North Stormont deem the lands described as the unopened road allowance between lot 18 and 19 concession 3, former township of Finch, to be surplus to the township's needs. And council directs staff to proceed with the closure and sale of a portion of the unopened road allowance with recommended conditions. Moved by Deputy Mayor Densham, seconded by Councillor Shane.
So there's been some change on this. I'll let Craig.
There have been some developments in recent weeks today. The unopened road allowance or suggested to be deferred by council, and this was at the request of the applicant. There's been some very recent dialogue with the public works superintendent, the applicant, and of course, we need to await the return of the superintendent who's also participating and possibly exploring other options for this applicant. So this report may not be necessary, but with respect to the question for this, to give all three parties much time to discuss and potentially find another solution. The language, so.
Perfect. And do we defer to a specific council meeting date, or is it just to a future?
Through the chair, I would prefer to indicate just deferred. I believe we'll bring it back July 18th, but I think we have enough flexibility.
Not specific. Perfect.
We
Thank
can
you.
just defer it and then bring it back when all three parties have had time digesting the way all.
Thank you. So do we have to get another motion now to defer it, or can we just defer it? Okay, so I will be asking instead of voting. So is everybody on par with deferring to the future? If you have a question, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Densham.
Yeah, I'm fine to defer. I guess my only point will be is if it's going to come back again to remove the road allowance, and maybe you already considered it with this go around, is should we also consider the area that extends beyond that they go into other properties? And because there's no point in us having road allowances, bits and pieces of road allowances, if we're going to get rid of it, if the whole road allowance isn't being retired in its entirety, and it's going to come back, can we look at getting rid of all of the entire road allowance if that's possible? You know what I mean?
Additionally, and perhaps Peter can correct me, he has more experience, but typically these are at the request of the adjacent property owners to require these unopened road allowances. We certainly wouldn't have the capacity to mandate that any of those property owners north of this particular section purchase it. We could certainly inquire. I think it would be somewhat unorthodox, but perhaps Peter could
As this, through the mayor, as the CEO said, we don't, in our policy right now, there's not any public consultation process. Basically directly request council and council and principal they'll process. So if there was a public consultation on that, that's where we might reach out to any owners and see if a few of them want to get together, but the current policy doesn't provide something to be reviewed, but that's.
And to add to the north, you would have where if the adjoining owners would be interested, but to request one at the bottom that has no land that's affecting to get a strip of 66 feet would be, and that's Finch. So Roxborough is only 40, so it would be tough to the task. So that's good. Any other further discussion? Are we good with the deferral? So we will defer till future. So the RFQ with Public Works, section 7.3.
That the council of the township of North Stormont received report number PW 11-2023 regarding the RFQ PW 008-2023 hydro vac trailer for information purposes. Moved by Councillor Shane, seconded by Deputy Mayor Densham.
Thank you. Any discussions on, I haven't seen it. Maybe Blake can give us a. Have you managed to use it? Yeah.
Yes, we did. And actually, just today, we had to support on Ontario Clean Water with the rehabilitation of the well 2, what you were getting report was not going to be good.
That's the one in Moose Creek.
Yes. But no, I mean, in all honesty, the contractor wanted to get a hydrovac truck in to actually clean it all up, where our vacuum trailer has all the components and capabilities of doing the same job as a bigger truck, but not actually carrying the same load. It's much smaller soil tank in it. But it does have the same capabilities as a big truck to do the same kind of job. But at a smaller version and at a very low percentage of costs compared to a hydrovac truck. So.
Thank you. Any discussions or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. Going down with fees and charges.
That council receive and accept the revised fees proposed in the draft fees and charges bylaw, moved by Councillor Shane, seconded by Deputy Mayor Densham.
Any discussions on our fees? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Densham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's a question I think that's come up before, and I'd love to hear staff's thoughts on this. With respect to reservations of services like water and sewer, and it can be reserved. And, you know, we've kicked around the idea of after a period of time, they kind of time out, so they become available, and or should they be renewed for an additional fee? Was that considered at all in this fee schedule, or is it something we should be looking at?
Through the chair, and I don't know if Peter Young would want to address. Unfortunately, with Mo's recent transition, we did incorporate some of his suggestions in the Schedule G regarding the water and sewer allocation. We did not touch or discuss the two-year window, but certainly that. I think the more aggressive pricing will all be an enticement for individuals to have if we want to apply. Be a bit more serious and think allocation for their sitting on for too long. It's a very good point again with the pressure of home. Unless Peter has no, we did not review the time frame.
It's the only question I guess I'd ask is, does any of the other municipalities have a policy on that differs from ours, or is it kind of a one-time flat
I
fee?
believe 2 or 3 years.
Right.
I'm not sure about the fee, if there's a renewal. At that time period.
Yeah, I would expect it would be at least 2 or 3 years, because it takes time to do the development. It's more if it goes on for 7 or 8 years and we're having to turn people away because we've run out of facilities, that's where I start to get a little bit concerned.
Councillor McDonald.
Let's just look at the building fees, increased by 6.8%, reflecting the consumer price index. Looking at like we definitely don't want to be taking from reserve to cover. We'd like to be more close to cost recovery for sure. Looking at the cost of gas, et cetera, knowing our staff increase, our COLA was 3%. So I'm assuming there's some numbers that have been crunched by finance or the CAO to guesstimate we're gonna get to a cost recovery with the 6.8%. Or is it just the CPI? Like, is it a number based on calculating what we think it will cost, or is it just matching CPI?
Through the chair, I will project, the departments of their respective schedules of weight and us to crunch some moving in strategic approach that we do annually, or we try to do annually. We don't want to increase things across the board arbitrarily, but certainly drawing from the research for us is worrisome. We also didn't want it to be cost prohibitive either, so we have that balanced approach. I don't know if that would take us to a net zero. It's a very delicate balance.
Through the chair, it's difficult, when we're calculating permit fees to be at a cost recovery position, because we also want to look at the inflation. We also want to look at other townships to make sure that we're still in line, with those fees. And then we, of course, have different numbers, of how many permit fees we'll have in a year. So it's difficult to, compute like a break even cost, and then also with all the other factors determining over the year. But the increase by the average CPI of last year will definitely help in trying to increase the revenue so that we can leave the revenue in reserves.
Are we aiming for like an 85, or is there a goal in mind, or it's just sort of like, let's get up at least with the CPI of last year and see where we fall, and then maybe make more adjustments. Like, I know for where I work, we aim for 90 cost recovery. That way you don't want to go over, you don't want to be too under. And so it seems like this will get us closer and help us stop taking from reserves, and then maybe we relook at it at the end of the year. How did we do? Where are we at? Are we at a 60% cost recovery, at 80? Where are we at?
Yeah,
That might be helpful.
yeah, through the chair. And it really is that, just looking year to year and the trends and what we expect and during the budgeting process. But what was I gonna mention?
I would like to interject and indicate that part of this report needs to be amended, because the CAO administration would like to see an automatic CPI increase. I believe Andre was relatively I transitioned in 2019, but I believe the fees were fairly static for a number of years, and I can be corrected. But the way to circumvent, but the way to avoid significant percentage increases in any fee is to do them gradually. And so I would like to see, once we take this back to the final approval, I would like council on it, and it alleviates this review every year. It will reflect, in my opinion, the best course of action is to do a 1% minimum and 3% maximum, not based on other policies and procedures and bylaws. And it doesn't impact our business community or our developers too much, but it also ensures we at least try to keep up with some of the inflation that we should be able to salaries and stuff. So that will be one of the amendments to the existing policy. So it will just automatically roll over every calendar year, depending on the increase.
Yeah, I definitely support that. So the building code part 8 permits, it's 2% a year that it goes up every year. That's written into the contract. And I don't know about the counties, but I think 1 to 3 is reasonable. And I agree with that approach, just to stay on par each year. As the salaries increase with COLA, the fees have to, because these fees are basically salaries other than the fuel, as you noted. So thank you.
you. Deputy Mayor Dencham.
It's a good topic, so thank you for bringing it up. And I'm not so sure about the 3% on the top, because if we don't recover the cost, then the taxpayer pays it. It's like, it's not that, it's not like if we only cap it at 3%, that money's going to magically come from someplace. And it is intended to be a cost recovery. So just my thoughts as we look at this going forward, I'm not sure whether the 3% cap at the top is necessarily the right way to go. Because again, if it's truly supposed to be cost recovery, then the person who's benefiting from the permit, from the process, is best to fit the bill on that, rather than, you know, having all of our taxpayers have to bear the burden on it. That's,
And through the chair, that's a fair point, and of course, I don't know. I was trying to put forward something that would be reasonable and not be cost prohibitive. I understand and agree that it should be the individuals obtaining these permits should bear the burden of it. However, I don't think the last 3 years are reflective of what traditionally we've seen in you know, CPI, and I think the treasurer can confirm, and usually we would see a 1.5 to 2.5% increase, at least in my experience in the municipal world, but you know, we've seen 5.2 and 6.8 respectively. So the numbers are significant compared to what we would want. Again, I was trying to find a balanced approach. And hopefully once we'll see a balance in the other percentages and get back to normal, but I don't know.
no, and I don't disagree. And so maybe the way to look at it, rather than arbitrarily setting percentages, is to keep an eye on how much we're drawing from reserves, which is where this conversation started. And the idea again is reserves are intended to kind of help steady over time. But they're not intended to fund, you know, for many years in a row. So maybe that's the right balance to look. Anyhow, I'll leave it to you guys. You're the experts to look at this and crunch the numbers, but those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
One last comment, if I may. The finance department, like our intent is that the building department is self-supporting. So again, that we're not trying to put away reserves every single year, but at least that we're breaking even. But I think also the intent with the CPI was that so the CAO, we can do our annual review and we have that flexibility to at least have a ceiling on it, doing a rollover CPI average from the previous year. We can also input the 1 to 3% or not. So last year's with it being 6.8%, then that would be our ceiling. So not like we would ever arbitrarily increase it to over and above of what we would need, but at least it provides in the bylaw a ceiling that, you know, we're restricted within this amount every year by the CAO's direction.
Further question? So in regards to cost recovery, if you look like the building department is one aspect where we will have to, because we've been dipping into our reserves, we got to kind of look at raising people, whether you're building a house, shop, or any aspect that should not come off the tax levy if we cannot meet the demand of so it's for certain specific individuals. There's certain infrastructure, the arena being one of them, we're trying to recover. But I mean, there is every municipality, I don't think anywhere I've seen where it's not subsidized some part, but it offers services, whether it's the arena or the hall on top and the arena and so on. So that's something to look at. But that's the two difference I'm looking at when we're dealing with certain individuals doing a specific project. Should be looking at cost recovery and getting all 100% back. That should not go on the rest of the municipality as far as dipping into our reserve or utilizing tax levy to increase it. So I agree with the deputy mayor. It's something I think we need to CPI. We need to review it regularly and just make sure that we're staying on par with where we should be. So where am I at? So the motion is on the table. So I don't believe there's any further discussions. All in favor? Perfect. Motion is carried. 8.1 in regards to our zoning amendment.
Yeah, so through the chair, the 8.1 is a zoning amendment. We had a zoning meeting this week, so it's done through delegation bylaw, so that's why there's no bylaw in the agenda. So it will be signed by the mayor and CAO clerk this evening as well, so that's why it's not in the agenda.
This was where council was not needed
Right, yeah,
on
yeah,
Tuesday morning, I believe.
yes, yeah. There was a small meeting, the planner, Peter Young was here, myself and the applicant, the person that's wishing to purchase the land. There was no other comments, no concerns from the public or anything, or agencies at all for this.
Okay, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Danchel.
So, for 8.1, it's just that if we're going to put, can we be a bit more specific in the agenda, just to, if we're going to put a statement like that and kind of expose this to the public, it might be helpful for them rather than saying, what does this really mean? Or what's the decision being made? It might be helpful just to put another statement alongside that so people understand the decision that's being supported.
So as far as transparency, maybe Peter can fill us in. Is that something, how would you go about if we're putting the message and then not detailing the information?
Yes, so the delegation of the bylaw would require 50 word. As with all the bylaws and wonder why one was missing, that's why it's just put on the agenda. About details, so there's a signed bylaw. Yeah, could be reported for sending any just happen. Just maybe
Everybody in favor of that? Perfect.
those are first ones.
So there's no motion, so
No
we can
motion.
go to 8.2 in regards to our tax collection policy.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 47-2023, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 74-15 to repeal the policy and procedures for tax collection, policy number FIN-001-2015, tax collection policy, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 28th day of June 2023. Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Shane.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? You sure, Councillor McDonald? I can take the question.
It was just those small changes, a couple, I read through these little edits, so the nature of the change, very minor. Confirm that.
Would Leanne, who would
In the policy itself, through the chair. Yeah, so sorry, through the chair, this is, so we're repealing, we had a bylaw that had 3 different policies attached. So we have to repeal that old policy.
Yeah.
Then in 8.3 is the new current policy.
That's, I guess, yeah.
Okay.
So for those that haven't gone to the post office, the tax bill did come in, and I believe the dates are July 26th and September 27th is going to be the 2 dates as stipulated. So no further discussions, all in favor? Motion is carried. Moving on to the bylaw to repeal the subdivision.
So we repealed.
Oh, so now we're
Yeah.
going to 8.3, sorry,
Yeah.
okay.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 48-2023, being a bylaw to adopt a property tax collection policy for the township of North Stormont, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 28th day of June 2023. Moved by Deputy Mayor Densham, seconded by Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. So I jumped the gun and came up with the reveal. Yeah, so any discussions in regards to tax collections Go ahead.
Could you
Councillor
explain
Michelle.
overall what's going on with all the repeals and replaces for me? Can you help me?
Yes.
Help me, Carly.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So our former policy was in 2015. So this is just an update to our property tax collection. We had omitted some sections that were a little redundant because they already fall under other acts, like the municipal act, our fees and charges bylaw. And then a lot of the practices are already in place with our partners from Real Tax for the tax collection point of things. The some of the balances and threshold figures we've changed. So just updates from like our minimum balance write-offs went from $5 to $15. And then also our PAP notifications. So if a taxpayer has information, banking information that they need to change, or they want to withdraw consent for the PAP, then we reduced it to 5 days, things of that nature. We also added in the write-offs for $15 or less to allow myself and also the deputy treasurer to write off those minimum amounts under $15. And that's for things that if there was an error on our behalf where it charged penalty and interest, then we usually reverse the calculation to net out the revenue on that because it shouldn't have happened. So we run into things like that sometimes. So this just gives finance that flexibility. Anything that's under $15 would be myself and the deputy treasurer. And then it's also more user friendly. So near the end, you may have seen like we added some links, so that'll guide taxpayers directly right to the resource.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. Now 8.4, so the bylaw to repeal the subdivision.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 49-2023, being a bylaw to repeal the subdivision agreement registered on title for the lands described in Schedule A, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 28th day of June 2023. Moved by Councillor Shane, seconded by Councillor McDonald.
So that's Peter's report. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. Moving to our procedural bylaw 8.5.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 50-2023, being a bylaw to repeal and replace bylaw numbers 36-2020 and 65-2020 for governing the calling, place, and proceedings of meetings of council and its committees, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 28th day of June 2023. Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Deputy Mayor Densham.
Any questions on the procedural bylaw? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Densham.
Not a question. I just wanted to thank staff for taking back and looking at the areas that you wanted to tweak a little bit from the last time we read it. I've had a chance to read through it. It looks good. So thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. Bylaw 8.6 with regards to our fee and charges.
So that's the draft bylaw that we're not passing tonight. It was just for information.
For
to show
information.
The changes that.
So there's no motion
There's
to
no
be
motion
read.
for that.
Perfect.
It'll come back.
Thank you. Moving up to the correspondence. 12.1 to 12.6.
Be it resolved that the correspondence as listed as items 12.1 to 12.6 on the agenda be received. Moved by Councillor Shane, seconded by Councillor McDonald.
Any questions on their correspondence? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the report? Motion is carried. So scheduling for our next council meeting will be July 18th, 2023. There will only be one meeting in July and also one in August, on August the 15th, 2023. I will take this opportunity because I would like to maybe, and maybe Craig can help me with it, the open remarks. I think it has a better fit at this stage where we're kind of wrapping up, and then we can instead at the beginning, I think we're into our business. And so anyway, all I want to do, because I missed the opportunity at the beginning, but I had the honor to attend Tugwa High School's graduation, and not just at Tugwa. I think I'd like just to congratulate all our graduates moving on to, well, not just, I guess, the high school, the 7 and 8 as well. But I'd like the big step in their lives, and I'd like to congratulate all our graduates. Thank you. That being said, we will go to the ratification bylaw.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 51-2023 being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify council's actions at its regular meeting of June 28th, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 28th day of June 2023. Moved by Deputy Mayor Densham, seconded by Councilor McDonald.
Boom. That being said, all in favor? Motion's carried. Adjournment of the meeting. It's 7:35 ish.
Be it resolved that this regular meeting adjourn at 7:35 PM, moved by Councilor McDonald, seconded by Councilor Shane.
All in favor? Motion is carried. Good evening, or everybody have a good evening for those that are joining us and also the ones online.